back to Mr. C's online lessons. Today we're going to be talking about the consumer market. So our learning goals for today, aside from trying to figure out why it is snowing again, is to learn what a market is, what a market share is, what a market segment is, and what demographics are, and why businesses use them. So that's what you're going to look out for in this lesson. So recall from last week that marketing describes all the activities involved in getting goods and services from the businesses that produce them to the consumers who wish to buy them. It also involves transforming an idea into a sellable product. Now, all the activities involved in transforming an idea into a sellable product go beyond the 4 Ps. They're all contained within the 4 Ps, but there's lots of activities that have to be conducted before you start figuring out the 4 Ps and during and afterwards, and it's a lot of what I'll call interconnected tasks, meaning that each of these tasks relies on other things and different tasks influence other things that businesses do. So here's a list of the big things. So marketing, usually when people think marketing, they think advertising, and we've already established why marketing involves these two things, but it's far more than that. It involves research, development, sales, distribution, and a bunch of other things that we're not going to talk about in the scope of this course, but all 6 of these are sort of the big ones, and they all fit within the 4 Ps to various degrees. Now, just a little refresher, the 4 Ps are product, price, place, and promotion. So, we're going to talk about the difference between a market and marketing. And we've talked about marketing already, but a market is the external environment to a business. So it's everything outside of the business. And it includes competition and consumers. Now, we've already talked a lot about competition and direct competitors and indirect competitors, but now we're going to take a more focused approach on the consumers, which are the other part of a market. So for every product type, there is a market, and it contains the sum total of competitors and consumers that sell and buy a product type. So for example, there's a running shoe market, there's a hand sanitizer market, there is a coffee market, there's a video game market, there's a market for, I'm just trying to think of stuff. I mean, there's a market for everything. There's a market for social media apps, there's a market for candy. There's a market for everything. And when we're looking at, say, the running shoe market, we're looking at all the companies that sell running shoes and all the consumers that buy running shoes. And the sum total of all those people and the money that they spend is a market. All right, now there's a lot of text on here, but it's all related to the same idea, so I'm just going to go through it. And if you want, you can pause the video and read this, but I will read it to you. So we look at markets as pie charts, and this pie represents all of the business that consumers do with all the suppliers of a good or service. So for example, if we look at the running shoe market, there's a whole bunch of businesses that sell running shoes, and there's a whole bunch of people that buy running shoes. And we're going to use a pie chart to represent all of the purchases and transactions that go on between the people who buy running shoes and the people who sell running shoes. Now, at any given moment, there's a certain number of people, or well, to be more accurate, we'll call them consumers, buying a certain amount of products in a market. Different consumers will buy different products from different businesses. And what that means is that there's a certain percentage of products that are bought from each supplier. Another way of saying that is that people buy different products from different businesses, and if you were to sum up all the transactions that, say, Nike makes and Reebok makes and Adidas make, they each comprise a percentage of all the business that's done. Another way of thinking about this is that if we look at the pie representing all the sales that are made for running shoes, each company will have a slice of that pie. And we call this slice a market share. So they have a share of a market. Do you remember when we talked about business ownership, namely corporations? And we talked about how the public can buy shares of business ownership. Do you remember that? Where people can buy stocks, and the more stocks they have, the more percentage ownership of the business they carry. It's the same thing with markets, except we're looking at how much of a percentage each company has in terms of the number of sales they make. I'm going to show you a visual example of that. So here is the soft drink market. Now, I don't remember from what year this was taken, but this is an actual pie chart representing all the sales of soda pop that are made in North America. Now, you can see that each company here, or each main drink, I believe this is broken down by company and by main brand name. You can see the percentage of sales that each brand has. For example, Coke is by far and away the biggest. Now, when I say Coke, I'm talking about the product Coke, not Coca-Cola. If it was Coca-Cola, it'd be like most of this would go to Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola owns a lot of companies. But the actual product of Coke comprises 26% of all soft drink sales. So if you were to look at any given shop that sells soda, 25 or 26% of their sales would be for the product Coke. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. That's a lot of Coke. And each one of these slices represents a percentage of the amount of sales that go towards soda pop. And so we've got Coke at 26, Diet Coke at 15, Pepsi at 15, Mountain Dew for 10, Dr. Pepper for 9, Diet Pepsi for 8, etc. So these are all the major products, and we're just showing what percentage of sales goes to each product. Now, if I wanted, I could break this down by company, and I could do the percentage of sales for all Coca-Cola products. Now, in reality, I believe Coca-Cola owns Sprite. I think they own Fanta. I'm pretty sure. What else do they own? They own a lot. But anyways, Coke would have at least half of this because Coke owns a lot of these products. But in this particular pie chart, we're just looking at product names themselves. So from that diagram, you can see that each company, or each product in this case, has a market share of the soft drink industry. And so what that means is that a percentage of sales go towards this company or this product. But markets give us more useful information than this. Now, when we look at the market of, say, soft drinks, all of these different suppliers are trying to promote their product to their customers. But different customers are going to buy different things. So, for example, as you can imagine, someone who buys Orange Fanta probably isn't going to also buy Schweppes Ginger Ale. You may not even heard of Schweppes Ginger Ale. Schweppes is a very old company. They've been around for a long time. And their success was built on selling ginger ale with really high-quality, authentic ingredients. They've had a rivalry with Canada Dry for a long time. But ginger ale is usually bought. Well, you tell me, what kind of person usually buys ginger ale? And how about the kind of person who usually buys Orange Fanta? Can you think of any differences off the top of your head? Now, usually someone who buys Orange Fanta is probably going to be younger. They're probably going to be a more experienced soft drinker, or that they enjoy soft drinks fairly often. It's hard to make general statements unless you do research, and companies do tons of research to find out exactly, from a statistical point of view, the the most likely type of person to buy their product. But I think it's safe to say that Orange Fanta is probably bought by a younger person, probably someone who has more experience drinking soft drinks, whereas ginger ale is probably bought most likely by older people, um, probably even elderly people. Um, they probably have less experience drinking soft drinks. They probably lead a more sedentary lifestyle. Um, and you can go on from there. And companies go to great lengths to find out the sort of type of customer that will buy their product. Companies can, to an extent, develop sort of a stereotypical profile of the statistically the most likely person to buy their product. And that's a really powerful thing, to be able to figure out the kind of person that will buy your product, because then you can figure out exactly how to promote your product to them and how to make your product look the most appealing possible for that type of person. And that's what companies do. And so when we look at the consumer market, each time you buy a product or service, you're participating in the consumer market. And in a market, you make your own decisions about how to spend your money and how to use the products that you've purchased, right? But the more people who go out and buy these products, the more active the consumer market is, and the more data companies are able to gather as to the kind of person that's buying their products. You've probably, I'm not sure, but a lot of stores, especially clothing stores, will try to offer you a rewards program, where they get your email address and they might ask you to fill out a survey. Have you ever seen those receipts? You get them, you get them from McDonald's a lot, you get them from fast food joints, you get them from stores like Best Buy or Loblaws or Metro or anything like that. Do you ever notice that the cashiers will give you a receipt and they'll circle some text on it and say, "Oh, fill out a survey for a chance to win $1,000"? That's probably happened to you. And what they're doing is companies are actually trying to get you to fill out surveys so they can gather data on you. And they're not trying to spy on you personally, but what they're trying to do is gain an understanding of their consumer market. They're trying to figure out the statistical person that's buying their products so they can figure out how to promote their products to that person. Because customers are very different in their tastes. What you like is probably going to be different than what I like. Not on everything. We might both enjoy a couple different dishes, but there's probably some food or some drinks or some kind of entertainment that I like that you don't like, and that's because we're different people. We also buy things differently. We spend our money on different things. We have different amounts of money to spend. We have different goals and all this stuff. And so companies expend a great deal of energy trying to figure out what the buying habits of their consumers are going to be. And so, for example, for all three of these products down here, there's a very specific type of stereotypical person that will buy these products. And just by looking at them, you can probably guess some characteristics about the people who are buying these products. For example, on the left, this is a McLaren F1, I believe. Very cool sports car. Just by looking at it, you can probably tell the kind of person who's going to buy that car. So why don't you take a minute and think to yourself, what would the characteristics be of someone who's going to buy that vehicle? All right, so let's see if you and I came up with the same things. First of all, they're going to be rich. Second of all, they're going to be young. You may not know this, but a car this low to the ground has to have really stiff suspension. Otherwise, whenever they go over a bump, the car is going to bounce into the ground and scratch the bottom of the car and damage it. So a stiff ride like that will hurt someone unless they're young, so that their body is still in good shape. Looking at the flare of color here, this bright yellow with this dark black, this is a very bold color selection. So someone who's going to have a bold color selection like that is probably going to be pretty outgoing. They're definitely going to be employed. They're probably going to travel a lot. Lots of information we could tell about this person. Now, in terms of the skateboard, this is a different skateboard from your average Joe skateboard. Usually an average Joe skateboard is covered with sort of a sandpaper-like material. There's decals sprayed underneath, but this one is made out of wood. It looks like it's made out of mahogany, cherry, and I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, it's made out of expensive materials, and it looks pretty classy. So what kind of person would buy this? Whoa. What kind of person would buy this? And it's not going to be the same person who's going to buy that. And same thing for these gardening tools. These are probably going to be bought by someone who's older, who has a house of their own, probably employed since they have a house of their own, but you don't know for sure. Given the black and orange color selection, maybe male more likely as opposed to female. Black and orange aren't typically colors that females like, but everybody's different. They clearly like the outdoors. They're more physically active because sedentary people, that is people who are not active, don't garden usually. But see, there's a different type of person that will buy this, that will buy this, that will buy this, and they're not the same person. And so we're not going to promote our products to these people the same way. You wouldn't promote a McLaren the same way that you would promote these gardening tools. You wouldn't try to appeal to the same characteristics because these are going to be bought by different people. Same thing with the skateboard. So since businesses know that not everyone is interested in buying their products or services, they need to focus on who is going to buy their products or services, who is most likely to buy their products or services. And so businesses need to target their products and services at a segment of the market. And so a segment of a market is kind of like a market share in that it's a piece of the market. But in this case, a market segment is a piece of the market in which everything has the same characteristics. So it's not so much a piece of a market as it is a collection of all things in the market that have similar characteristics. All things are all people. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. So by researching the market, focusing on consumers, businesses can make educated guesses about the type of person who's most likely to buy their product. This theoretical type of person will have certain characteristics, statistically speaking, that helps us understand them better and how they think. Now, a market segment is a group of consumers within the market that have similar characteristics. So for example, in the soft drink market, there is a segment of children age 12 and under called preteens. Now, there's a preteens market segment for most products, because most products can be used by people age 12 and under, not cars, obviously. So the car market will not have a preteen market segment in it because you legally have to be of age to drive in order to own a car. Or you can own a car, but you just can't drive it. But anyway, that's a gray area. So in terms of market segments, there is for most products, like for example, for books, for food, for candy, for clothing, for shoes, all of these markets will have a market segment for preteens. That is to say, there is a group of customers in all of those markets that is age 12 and under. And that's a market segment. And each of those markets has a segment of preteens that buy those products. Now, there are market segments for almost every characteristic you can think of. And a theoretical person who is most likely to buy your product will have a collection of these characteristics. And when you understand the various characteristics that you believe your consumer will have, you can find a way to promote your product to them in a most successful a way as possible. So when we look at market segments, we're looking at either demographics or lifestyle, and I'll explain what both of those are. But in terms of, like right now, I'll tell you that preteen or age is a demographic piece of information. So demographics are characteristics about a person that comprise their identity, and they are used to segment markets according to things like age, gender, family size, income, education, employment status, religion, nationality, language. All of these are characteristics about a person, and these are all demographics. And so you could organize market segments for each of these characteristics. And any given person will have different characteristics. They'll belong to different market segments. So for example, what can you tell me about this person? In terms of age, I'd say she's middle-aged. She's probably around 30. In terms of gender, we would say that she's most likely to be female. In terms of family, who knows? We really can't tell by looking at this. Income, just based on the surroundings, I'm going to say mid to high, so probably 80 grand or so, which is on the higher end. Education, since she's got an office job, it's safe to say that she has a degree of some kind. Whether it's from college or university, who knows? She might have a master's or a PhD, who knows? But at least probably a bachelor's degree of some kind. In terms of occupation, no idea what she does for a living, but she's definitely employed. In terms of religion, we can't tell what religion she is just by looking, so we can't really guess from there. Nationality and race, she appears to be an African American. And in terms of language, can't tell, but this looks like she's dressed in what looks like North American business attire, so we could make an educated guess to say that she speaks English. Because we've never talked about this, but in terms of languages, English is called the language of business. It's the easiest language to use when conducting business transactions. And that's why most prominent businessmen, no matter what country they're from, speak some degree of English. It seems to be the language that business is just conducted in most often. I don't know why, but that's the case. So based on the fact that she's doing a white collar job, she's clearly an executive of some kind, she most likely speaks some degree of English. These are all demographics. Now, the other type of information that we can know about a person is their lifestyle. Now, lifestyle information is about the choices a person makes with their money and their time. These are much harder to ascertain. These are much harder to guess. But your product will have certain lifestyles attached to it. And this includes things like the way people live, how people choose to spend their time and money, what values they have, what beliefs they have, and what motivations they have. So how about this person? In terms of the way we live, we can tell that she lives an active lifestyle. She's clearly in athletic shape. In terms of how she chooses to spend her time, given that she's outdoors right by the water, we can tell that she enjoys spending her time, or some of it, in nature. She's an outdoorsy person. She clearly enjoys spending her time in being active, so she probably exercises a lot. In terms of values, she probably believes in clean eating. Most athletic people do. She believes in exercising, for sure. She believes in being healthy and making healthy choices. In terms of her beliefs, she believes that exercise is important. She believes that outdoors time is important. Um, Again, motivation. She's motivated to stay healthy. She's motivated to make sure she gets time outdoors. We could probably guess that she's motivated to travel, given that she's, doing yoga by the water. Not a lot of people do that, except for people who are very confident and very happy to travel around and go out of their way to go to outdoor locations. So clearly two very different types of information here. Now, you'll notice that we can't tell in terms of her demographics. We can tell her age. She looks like she's in her 30s. We can tell that gender, she's probably a female. But in terms of employment status, no idea. In terms of religion, no idea. Ethnicity, really hard to tell. With the sun makes it much harder to tell. In terms of, we talked about employment status, no idea. Income, no idea. Family status, no idea. So these pictures tell us two different types of information, and we can use that information to figure out how to promote our products. Before we jump to this, each of these pieces of information comprise a market segment. For example, for almost every market, there will be a market segment of people aged 30 to 40. Most products are bought by someone who is in the age of 30 to 40. So almost any market will have a market segment of people aged 30 to 40. All markets will have a female market segment and a male market segment. Same thing goes for education and religion and stuff like that. In terms of lifestyle, this is much harder to prescribe, but some products will have a very large market segment for active lifestyle, and some will have a very large market segment for inactive lifestyle. For example, video games have a market segment for both active and sedentary people, that is to say, people who exercise frequently and people who don't exercise at all. But depending on the kind of product, you can take a guess as to which type of person is more likely to purchase the product. But it's just a guess. There's no way to tell. There's no way to tell definitively. But anyways, back to the skateboard. If we look at a skateboard, what characteristics do you think this person has? So in terms of demographics, they're most likely to be aged 8 to 15. Now, there's probably another age range of guys or girls who go to college who have that skateboard. So that would be aged 18 to 24. But I'm just putting one age group here just to make things easier. So of all the markets, this is the market segment of all the people who are aged 8 to 15 who are going to buy that skateboard. This is all the active outdoor lifestyle type people. This is all the adventurous people. This is all the physically healthy people. This is all the reasonably wealthy family people. And the person who's going to buy that skateboard is right in the middle here, where all of these market segments intersect with each other. This is a Venn diagram, by the way. If you don't know what a Venn diagram is, it's a diagram of circles that's used to show a combination of pieces of information that are prescribed to a certain thing. So, for example, of all the kids that are aged 8 to 15, some of them will have an active lifestyle, and some of them will have a wealthy family, and only a few of them will have both, and that's represented by this intersection here. So in terms of this circle, there's also going to be a bunch of kids who are aged 8 to 15 who have an active outdoor lifestyle but aren't wealthy, and they're represented by this segment here. Now, of all the kids aged 8 to 15, a bunch of them will have wealthy families but not an active lifestyle, and they're represented by this section here. Now, of all the kids aged 8 to 15, some of them will have an active outdoor lifestyle who are also reasonably wealthy. and they're represented by this segment here. So we're overlapping pieces of information is what we're doing. And so the kind of person that's going to buy that skateboard is going to be aged 8 to 15, but they're going to have an active outdoor lifestyle. So they're in this section here. But they're also going to be adventurous because you use a skateboard to travel around. Some people are very timid and don't like traveling, and some people love traveling. So they're going to be aged 8 to 15 who have an active outdoor lifestyle. You see, we're shrinking the number of people that fall into all these categories. They're also adventurous, so now we're just in this little circle. They are also physically healthy, so now we're in this little circle. And finally, they're reasonably wealthy, which cuts it down to this little diamond shape. So of all the people that have these categories, only this tiny little group of people here have all five. All five of these categories overlap on just this one piece here. So of all the people that are going to buy that particular skateboard, they're all going to be aged 8 to 15. They're all going to be active. They're all going to be adventurous. They're all going to be healthy. And they're all going to be reasonably wealthy because it looks like an expensive skateboard. And so out of all these people, it's just this group that share all five of those characteristics. And that's how market segments work. So we use market segments and we overlap them, we apply them to figure out statistically the person who's most likely to buy our board. Now we can do this with far more than 5 characteristics. We can go as high as you want in terms of number. The only problem is the higher we go, the more overlaps we have, the fewer number of people are going to be in that little space. But what that does is it makes our understanding of our customer more and more accurate, which means that even though we have a smaller and smaller pool of customers that will buy our product, we have a higher understanding of who they are. And that's really valuable because when we try to promote our products to them, we know that much more about them. So when we try to promote our stuff, we'll try to do it in such a way that a person who is adventurous and active and young and wealthy and healthy will like that commercial. Because you wouldn't use the same commercial to appeal to someone who has all 5 of these characteristics versus a middle-aged mother of 3 who is unemployed. You wouldn't use the same techniques to apply to advertise the skateboard to that mother as you would to this kid who has all of these qualities. I just picked single mother of 3 who's unemployed. I just picked that out of my head. There's any number of combinations of information that you could use. Why does this all matter? Because when a business is marketing a product, they will need to know who to promote it to. What kind of person would take an interest in the product and who would most likely purchase it? When businesses strategize on how to promote products to consumers, they identify the characteristics that their ideal consumer would have and design promotions to advertise their products towards consumers in those market segments. And that's the subject of our next lesson. I've decided to make it 2 lessons, not 3. I'm cutting down on the content for this week, so lucky you guys. Well, I guess lucky depending on how you feel about this stuff. Some people, I love this stuff, but some people aren't as entertained by it. But we've got time considerations to make. So that's going to do it for markets. Our next lesson, which I'm going to record shortly, is going to be about branding. So stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you have questions, feel free to email me or see me in my office hours tomorrow. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Take care, and I'll see you soon.